Do you recall the very first time you saw Wonder Woman spinning around on the television screen? Just a single beautifully simple spin performed by Lynda Carter was completely enough to make millions of viewing audience members fully believe that a superhero could genuinely be both remarkably powerful and incredibly graceful to such a spectacular extent. However completely hidden away right behind that undeniably legendary cultural icon, exist certain underlying realities that the Hollywood entertainment industry once desperately attempted to keep permanently concealed from the general public. Were you actually aware of the underlying fact that Lynda Carter was at one point subjected to severe harassment right there on her very own production filming set? Or that the various cast members were frequently on the absolute verge of suffering real, authentic bodily burns, and even directly encountered disastrous physical accidents strictly due to exceptionally perilous, highly explosive cinematic props? And there was even an entire fully completed television episode that ultimately ended up being entirely scrapped and removed simply because the official financial sponsor happened to be a major cosmetics manufacturing company. 15. Deflecting bullets with real hands and burns that never made the news. Looking back today, the sparks flying off Wonder Woman's bracelets might look a bit unrefined. But in 1975, that effect was nowhere near as safe as audiences believed. There was no CGI. There were no digital composites. The crew had to attach miniature explosive squibs directly to Lynda Carter's metal bracelets. The ignition switch was concealed in the palm of her hand, so every time she raised her arms to block a bullet, sparks would burst right in front of the lens. The problem was that the detonation point was only a few centimeters away from bare skin. Just a half beat off in activation, a wrong camera angle, or a stray spark could turn the scene into a disaster. A stunt performer once suffered minor burns while helping stage the setup. 2 technicians also burned the backs of their hands adjusting the preloaded bracelets. Even Carter herself had a spark graze her wrist during a close-up, though luckily it left no serious injuries. The studio barely mentioned these incidents as they did not want the audience thinking Wonder Woman was putting its actors in danger. On television, she deflected bullets like an invincible goddess. Off-camera, the entire crew had to calculate every single button press, every camera angle, and every inch of distance between metal explosives and real skin. 14. A goddess on screen but unprotected behind the scenes. In the late 1970s, Lynda Carter, clad in her iconic red and blue armor, became the symbol of an entire generation. She appeared on magazine covers, wall calendars, and in the collective memory of audiences as a strong, confident, and virtually invincible Wonder Woman. But off-camera, the reality was entirely different. Years later, Carter revealed that right on the set of Wonder Woman, a cameraman drilled a small hole into her dressing room wall to spy on her. That was supposed to be an actor's most private sanctuary, yet it ultimately became a place where her privacy was deeply violated. The individual was eventually discovered and fired from the production. Carter never released his name, and the incident did not escalate into a major public scandal at the time. The harsher truth, as Carter later admitted, was that in the Hollywood of that era, women often had no idea who to report such behavior to, nor any guarantee that anyone would believe them. Many were left with no choice but to quietly warn one another, stay away from this person, be careful around that one. And on-screen, Wonder Woman was a formidable goddess who could take on the entire world. In reality, however, even Lynda Carter's most basic right to privacy was left unprotected. 13. The pressure to maintain a superhero figure in brutal body discipline. To become Wonder Woman in front of the camera, Lynda Carter had to do more than just act. She had to constantly maintain her figure to fit perfectly into the skin-tight costume of a national icon. Before scenes involving swimsuits or revealing outfits, the pressure became even heavier. Carter had to physically prep by cutting out salt, restricting water intake, and eating very little for 24 hours just to appear more toned on film. There were days when her meals consisted of nothing but boiled eggs or a few leaves of lettuce. It was enough to stand in front of the camera, but not enough to genuinely stay healthy. Carter sometimes had to lean against the set due to dizziness while the audience only saw a flawless superhero. That was the dark side of the Wonder Woman persona. On screen, she was a symbol of strength and confidence. Off camera, however, Carter's body was tightly constrained by the Hollywood standards of that era. An icon is not created solely through costumes and lighting, but also through very real sacrifices behind the lens. 12. The first costume version nearly became a television disaster. The image of Wonder Woman in the public's memory is tied to the red-blue starry armor with tight cuts. But in the early phase, designer Donfeld took a different approach, a two-piece bikini. It looked great on sketches and was perfect for underwater scenes until actual filming. After just a few dives and turns, the bikini began to slip, the ties loosened, and the crew had to watch Carter's every movement closely to avoid a live on-air incident. The camera had to pan with extreme caution, and the costume team kept rushing in and out to make adjustments. After a long, stressful shooting day, the decision was made: ditch the bikini. In its place came a tight blue wetsuit with white stars, still form-fitting. Still American in spirit, but much more secure. When the outfit finally stabilized on screen, few knew it only existed because the whole crew had breathed a sigh of relief that nothing was exposed on the first day. 11. The magical spin was invented by the actress, not in the script. One of Wonder Woman's most iconic features, the scene where Diana spins and transforms into a superhero, was actually not in the comic or original script. The writers had planned to handle it with a traditional costume change cut, but Carter felt it was too clumsy and lacked magic. During a test shoot, she suggested, "What if I spin like a dancer and stop?" The first spin had no effects other than flying hair and a twisting skirt, but the crew immediately knew they had found something new. In the early episodes, Carter had to spin precisely into a marked position on the floor, then change outfits during cutscenes, both manual and exhausting. Only when ratings improved did the team add light flashes and sound effects, completing the image that viewers would remember. Later on, DC Comics even incorporated the spin move into the comics as if it had always been there. 10. A script was killed just because it touched the cosmetics industry. In the archives of Wonder Woman exists a script called The Velvet Touch that almost no one has ever seen. Its plot revolved around a conspiracy involving toxic cosmetics that harmed users' health. The idea was not controversial artistically, but it hit a sensitive area at the time. Carter was a brand ambassador for Maybelline, and the show's airtime was bought by female-targeted sponsors, especially cosmetics brands. Fearing a chain reaction and media risk, the network pulled the episode from the production schedule just days before filming. No scandal, no questions, and no public statement was issued. The script was shelved, the director reassigned to another episode, and everything moved on as if it never existed. This is a rare example showing that sometimes a television series is not driven by creativity or technology, but by advertising budgets. 9. Lynda Carter once hung from a real helicopter. Audiences often assume that dangerous scenes are the work of stunt doubles. But in Wonder Woman, there was at least one shot where Carter did it herself. The scene where she clings to the side of a helicopter, taking off in the episode Anxious 77. The shot required the actor's face to be clearly visible, making the test with a stunt double ineffective. The idea of cutting the scene was considered, but Carter offered to do it. She was strapped in with a safety harness, did several trials on the ground, then performed the scene while the helicopter hovered low. The network disliked the risk, but Carter saw it as the only chance to go crazy just once. On screen, the shot lasted just a few seconds, but it carried the real feel that effects at the time couldn't recreate. 8. A chaotic wardrobe reflecting the network switch. Casual viewers often only remember the red-blue bodysuit, but if you look closely at the first season, you'll see Wonder Woman sometimes wore a star-covered pleated skirt, sometimes a cape, and sometimes switched to tight suits for action. In fact, this was the result of a long experimental period. ABC, the network behind Season 1, wanted to create a formal World War II era vibe skirts for diplomatic missions, capes for grand appearances, or to hide transitions between the main actress and the stunt double. By Season 2, the rights had shifted to CBS with a modern setting. They felt skirts were too cumbersome and didn't suit the action pacing. The skirt disappeared, the bodysuit stayed, the cape was only used for technical needs. As a result, Wonder Woman's wardrobe accidentally became a mini-map, showing how American television shifted from formal aesthetics to practical and filmable criteria. 12. Before becoming a superhero, she made a living on the lounge stage. 7. Before she was a superhero, she performed in tiny nightclubs for a living. Few would think that a 1970s television icon was once a vocalist who sang night gigs in lounges and bars. In the early 1970s, Lynda Carter roamed across the American Southwest with the band The Garfin Gathering, performing in casinos, hotels, and lounges from Nevada to Arizona. Even earlier, she had performed with Gary Berghoff, when he was still an unknown drummer before becoming famous in MASH. Even while donning the armor of Wonder Woman, Carter quietly stepped into the recording studio. The solo album Portrait debuted in 1978 with a soft pop ballad style, slightly melancholic, fitting the tastes of that decade. One of the songs was even used directly in the soundtrack of an episode, letting viewers hear the original voice without realizing it. After Wonder Woman, Carter didn't abandon music. She made TV specials, performed live-released new albums, and even won an Emmy. For gamers, years later, her voice unexpectedly returned in Fallout 4, where Carter both voiced and sang music for the character she played. To the general public, she is forever Wonder Woman. But to the stage scene, Carter is a lounge star with a warmth all her own. 6. The first Wonder Woman on TV had no superpowers. Before Carter stepped onto the screen with divine aura, ABC had released an earlier version in 1974, starring Kathy Lee Crosby. But this trial version nearly cut out all superhero elements, no lasso of truth, no bullet-deflecting bracelets, no extraordinary powers. Instead, the character functioned like a government agent dressed like a sports athlete, a V-neck top and shorts in an Olympic chic style. The concept was based on a special comic era when Diana Prince was stripped of her powers and lived as an ordinary agent. It was a novel idea, but ahead of its time, audiences wanted a mythological superhero, not a TV-style action character. The film achieved acceptable ratings, but didn't generate momentum for a full series. That gap opened the door for the 1975 version. This time with American aesthetics, Amazonian mythology, and the arrival of Carter, who fit the image that audiences had quietly longed for. 5. The actress who played Wonder Girl didn't want to be Wonder Girl. Not everyone who joined Wonder Woman felt excited. Actress Debra Winger, who played Drusilla, Diana's younger sister, when it was originally expected to be a supporting wing for the series. But Winger's inner feelings were quite the opposite. She disliked the Red Star miniskirt outfit, and even more so the idea of being a cute sidekick to Carter. Years later on David Letterman's talk show, Winger recalled that she hated the role from start to finish because the character felt shallow, flashy, and undeserving of respect. To prove her point, she took off the imitation Wonder Girl dress and threw it onto Letterman's desk, to a mix of laughter and shock from the audience. Side matters, including a legal dispute involving Carter's then-husband, further complicated Winger's experience. In the end, most of the public only remembered Drusilla as a cute supporting character. But to Winger, it was a role she wanted to leave behind as soon as possible. 4. A strange time jump from World War II straight into the 1970s. If you watch the full series, you'll notice a bizarre scene transition that was barely explained. The first part takes place during World War II. Then in the second part, the world suddenly jumps to 1970s America. No one in the show asks why, and no one questions how time passed. Behind it was a purely technical decision. ABC produced Season 1, but when CBS took over, they wanted to bring the character into modern times to better connect with the audience. Lynda Carter remained Diana Prince, but Steve Trevor, still played by Lyle Waggoner, was reimagined as the son of the original Steve Trevor. A logic only 1970s television dared to use. The opening episode of Season 2 presented the transition as if it were completely natural. Many viewers at the time even thought they were watching a new series, only with Carter returning with the same face and the same bracelets. 3. Comic book flair was trimmed to make room for a serious spy. In the 1970s, American TV was obsessed with the camp style. Exaggerated superheroes fight scenes like dancing, cheerful music, and sarcastic dialogue. Wonder Woman in its first season also featured many of those elements, but when CBS took over, the entire direction was reset. Less flashiness, less camp tone, less comedy, replaced with action and investigation, almost like a light detective series. Lynda Carter was very pleased. She once said she didn't want to turn Diana Prince into a comic character. She wanted a strong female figure, with a voice with purpose, with a reason to exist on screen. The result was a more subdued, less cheerful season, but one that was more enduring for adult viewers. It didn't spark a ratings explosion, but it built a legacy. 2. The costume did not allow comfortable sitting. Wonder Woman's costume looked dazzling, iconic, and nearly perfect on screen, but behind the scenes it was one of the most uncomfortable things for Lynda Carter. The outfit was designed with a tightly cinched corset around the waist and high-waisted short shorts so tight that sitting down became a real challenge. During long shooting days that lasted for hours, Carter was almost unable to sit comfortably between takes, because just sitting in the wrong position would cause the corset to press hard against her abdomen and ribs, making it difficult to breathe and causing pain. Instead of resting on a chair like the other actors, Carter often had to stand leaning against a wall, lightly brace herself on a table, or walk slowly to keep her body in the most tolerable condition. There were shooting days when she stood continuously for many hours simply to avoid the feeling of being trapped inside the costume. This not only caused physical exhaustion, but also affected her stamina when filming action scenes, which already demanded a great deal of energy. Costumes at that time did not have stretchy materials or ergonomic designs like those used today. Everything was made by hand, prioritizing how it looked on camera rather than the comfort of the actor. 1. Wonder Woman is one of the few 70s series never rebooted. While Hulk. The $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman were all remade multiple times. The Lynda Carter version of Wonder Woman has never had a proper television reboot. There have been many offers. At times, the project nearly got the green light, but every time it was halted. Partly because it was hard to surpass such a massive legacy. Partly because Carter herself repeatedly refused to appear as a supporting version. I'm afraid of feeling disappointed if the new version doesn't keep the old spirit, she once said. The Wonder Woman of that time was a product of that time. It can't be replicated. And maybe she was right. In the hearts of older viewers, Wonder Woman is still that woman. Curly hair, soft but sharp eyes spinning in a beam of light before rushing into danger. No CG, I needed no massive explosions, no reboot. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss our next videos. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next video.